on tinhorn-consulting.com/learn. So my name is April Tinhorn, and I welcome you to Eat, Learn, and Grow with Tinhorn. And it was born from really just listening to my inner voice, my higher power, whatever creator, whatever that might be for you. And I got a urgent sense that it was time to be of service during this time. And so that's what this is. It's a gift. It's a gift from me to you all. And so far, we're on our 4th episode. Everyone we've asked to present is gifting you as well with their talents and their knowledge and ability. So I definitely want to thank Jonathan Clark for his gift for today. Eat, Learn, and Grow is just really about us connecting. Sounds like we're going to be in this new normal for a while, and definitely we still need to be able to connect. You know, we're human folks. We need interaction, and wanted to provide a space for us to do that, and also where we can learn some tips, resources, and also to positively grow during this time. This episode on vitality and identity, it's being sponsored by Tinhorn. So what if you've been experiencing any problems in connecting with people in this new virtual environment, we'd like to be able to help you do that. If you had any upcoming trainings, conferences, or even managing your teams and now it's all virtual, that's something definitely we can help you with. And there's your 15-second commercial. Thank you for being here. Hey. So without further ado, I definitely wanted to introduce Jonathan Clark, and he's San Carlos Apache, and I met him, well, the memories I have from him are from the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, where we were able to volunteer together, and his volunteer work has been incredible. He's worked with the Human Rights Campaign, one of the co-founders of Native PFLAG, which is a support group, I believe, a family of LGBTQ loved ones here in the Phoenix area for Native American families. And he's also a founding board member for I believe it's still the most recent tribal college, the San Carlos Apache College. And he was the IT director for the Casino Arizona properties. And then he listened to his heart. It was actually after a movie that we went and watched that he shared with me his intentions that he had applied for the Peace Corps, and he was accepted, and he went and served in Ukraine. And as you saw on the flyer, he was over there when the pandemic hit, and he was evacuated Lifetime movie style from Ukraine and brought back, and he's quarantined, and now he's back home in San Carlos with his family. And he's got many more amazing qualities to him. I'm just happy that I can call him a friend. And with that, John, I'd like to pass the virtual screen and mic over to you. You do need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, April, for the introduction. And thank you, everyone, for joining us and taking the time to eat, learn, and grow with Tinhorn. We want to use these opportunities for us to share our stories. And when April approached me about sharing my story with the group, that's something that I'm very passionate about, is using our story, because it is our strongest weapon, I feel, that we have in our arsenal to help us realize who we are. And once we realize who we are, we can find that identity. For me, being San Carlos Apache, one thing I like to start off to kind of break the ice with people is my Apache name given to me by my family is Tlinjaje, and that means baby horse. So when I was younger, I was telling everybody my name is Baby Horse, but as I got older, I'm like, oh, that's Young Stallion. So it's not Baby Horse anymore, it's Young Stallion. So with that, that's part of my identity as well, that my family And my friends and those who know me well will find anything horse related and will send it to me or say it reminds them of me. So I'm really honored to carry that name of or baby horse. It went from young stallion. For one point, it was maybe unicorn. I don't know. We'll see how it develops even further. But I want to use this next 25 minutes to share with you a part of my story. And hopefully you can use anything that I've talked about to help you wherever you are along on your journey. And if not, that's okay. I'm a resource as well. Please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information will be shared after this session is over. And I believe Lisa is managing the chat room. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to put it in there. Feel free to stop me at any point and ask me to expand on things. But with that, I'll go ahead and get started. Like April had mentioned, I am from San Carlos. I was born and raised in San Carlos. Went to school out here all the way through high school. I did go to Globe High School. I volunteer a lot. I do a lot of volunteering. It's funny because my family will make jokes that I'm a professional volunteer. But I think that stems from my parents. Both of my parents were very active in the community. My father worked with law enforcement, and he always encouraged us to give back to the community. So if there was any events that were happening, he brought us with him. And my mother as well, she went to ASU and studied chemistry. She's the biggest science nerd that I know, who I try to aspire to be as well. After that, she worked with IHS in the laboratory for 47 years before retiring. So now she's enjoying her retirement. I would tell her a little too much because now we're all here invading her space. Because of the pandemic, I've decided to come back to San Carlos. But growing up on the reservation, I really enjoyed my family. I really enjoyed my friends. We would play late into the night. We knew it was time to come home when the streetlights came on or when the sun had set. But there were always those times where we would push it a little further, and we were either recreating scenes out of movies that we had seen, or we were playing tag all over the reservation, chasing each other down by the river or up the mesa. So those were always times that I remember with my friends, who I'm still really good friends with them now, all these decades later, now that we're grown. And one thing I remember about going to Globe High School is going to school off the reservation is something I wanted to go to San Carlos High School or go to East Fork High School. Those are schools on either San Carlos Reservation, and East Fork is on the White Mountain Reservation. That's where my family went. That's where my parents met. That's where all of my older brothers had gone. My family is a family of 7. I have 3 older brothers and 1 younger sister, so there's 5 of us total, and then my 2 parents. And then I have pictures. I don't know if we can show those as well, but it's not anything that we need to show right away. But going to Globe High School, I did have a lot of challenges. I knew that I was different. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to classify it. I just knew it was different. And using that, I found my salvation in just reading books, because it was a 45-minute bus ride one way from getting picked up at 5:45 in the morning, taking the bus to school, and then coming home by like almost 4:30, almost 5 o'clock in the evening. So I did a lot of reading, and I was really involved with our journalism program, the yearbook program, where by the time it was my senior year, I became the editor-in-chief of the high school yearbook. And I was the first male editor-in-chief and also the first Native American editor-in-chief. So that was really an accomplishment, and I knew there were a lot of eyes looking at me. And that's when I realized that our actions have consequences, and people do look at things that we do. And it wasn't until I went to college like I had mentioned, my father was in law enforcement. And so every day was like, you're going to be a lawyer. You're going to be a lawyer. So I went to ASU, studied law, pre-law. After the first year, I was like, all right, this is not for me. This is nothing that I want to do. But being that, like I had mentioned, my mom is a big science nerd, I started tinkering in that. I was very strong in my math subjects. And so this is late 90s. I'll date myself, where technology was still emerging. There were still websites that were coming out, and email was something new. So I wanted to be a part of that. And I studied computer information systems. And that's what I got my degree in. And being a part of the computer information system degree program, I found myself connecting with ACES, the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. And I tell this story very, very plainly. I only became connected with them because I needed money. I needed scholarships. I needed to pay for my education. I would see my friends who, during the summer, they would go home or they would go on vacation. I would come back to San Carlos and work, whether it was in an office somewhere or with the forestry program, wildland firefighting, something to build that income to help pay for the next school year. And I actually found the value of when I was coming home for the summers, I wasn't the one who was out in the field anymore. I was in the office upgrading their computers and working on their systems, which was great practice for me as well. So I know that that connection to ACES and learning of ACES through that way has been great, because ever since then, ever since college, I'm a huge supporter of ACES, and I can't speak anything but highly of them. And I'm still involved with them today. I worked with the Phoenix local chapter as a professional when I was working at Casino Arizona and Talking Stick Resort. I was with them for 14 years at the casino. And during that time, I saw them grow from one property to 3 properties. One of them being non-gaming, which is their HR facility. But all the IT work that is involved with all of that is ever growing, ever changing. And I am very grateful to them because they supported me with my master's program and with my master's degree. So they really invested in their employees. So I'm always thankful for that. And during that time and during my work with ACES, I always felt a sense of community and connection when it was with my parents helping out in the community in San Carlos, to being a recipient of that goodwill by receiving an ACES scholarship. And also, I was a Unity alumni as well, working with different youth councils. So being on that end of the goodwill, I knew that people had gone out of their way to help me. So it was my turn to go out of my way and help other people. So I started working with ACES, and I became the president of the local chapter in Phoenix. And I was in that role for 2 years, but continued to still be involved with the chapter after that time, whether it was community outreach events or different scholarship programs that we're running. The biggest event is the golf tournament, which I still enjoy to this day. But that's when I started my my passion of giving back and volunteering, and that's when I realized that's what I wanted to do. So I branched out of it. How else can I help? What other communities could use something I can bring to them? And like I talked about before, I was different. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what being LGBT meant or what it even encompassed, because growing up in rural Arizona on a reservation, one thing that I learned about someone who is gay is 2 things. You make fun of it, and it's bad. So those are the 2 things that I learned about it growing up. And I wanted to help diminish that stigma. So by doing that, I started working with the Human Rights Campaign, doing my research, talking to different people, and learning that the Human Rights Campaign is a place for individuals to connect and find those positive resources. So I spent some time with them, I want to say about 2 years, and I also became a corporate trainer working with the Human Rights Campaign, where I would go to different organizations, companies, schools, and universities and do trainings on safe spaces, how to create safe spaces, how to use inclusive language, and how to be inclusive with their students, with their employees, or with anyone that utilizes the services provided by the organization. And in doing that, I met a really good friend of mine who we got together and we started talking about creating safe spaces. But the places we were going with PFLAG, which stands for the Parents, Family, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, and also with the Human Rights Campaigns, there was nobody that looked like us. Look at our complexion, look at how we are. Everyone in the audience or everyone in the room was white, and there was no Native presence in these rooms, and we definitely stood out. So we talked a lot. How can we change this? We know there's a need in Native American communities and tribes and reservations for individuals who identify as LGBT. How can we help serve these communities? Because that is who we are, and that's impactful. Because if those communities are anything like the one I grew up in, where all you learn is it's bad and you make fun of it, we need to change those stigmas. And we saw a high suicide rate among LGBT youth, but it's 3 times more in Native American communities. So with that, I was working with an individual, a friend of mine, Sheila Lopez, and I'm not sure if some of you are familiar with her or not, but we started working with PFLAG and started the Native PFLAG chapter. And with Native PFLAG, it became the first, and I think to this day, the only chapter of PFLAG that is focused on Native American traditions and cultures, where we bring experts in and guests in to talk about identifying as two-spirit and how being a two-spirit individual traditionally is someone who is highly regarded as someone who cares for orphan children, cares for the elderly, helps resolve disputes, and someone who's welcomed in communities. We don't see that as much anymore, and that's what we tried to do with Native PFLAG. And I'm happy to say that we worked on it many years ago, and I believe it just celebrated a 9-year anniversary. So it is sustainable and it is moving forward. And this past February, Native PFLAG was a driving force behind hosting one of Arizona's first two-spirit powwows. So looking at the picture, we would have parties where we would make parade signs as we marched through the Pride Parade. And then the picture on the right where I'm holding the Pride flag, that was with the Native American Recognition Days, where Native PFLAG was asked to be the Grand Marshal. So I was very happy and very proud to see that and to see how far that it's been coming. And we started working with some of the local tribes with Gila River. They have a group that we started working with called Hope. And then with Salt River as well, we started working with them. They have a group called Love, which supports LGBT individuals, two-spirit individuals. And that was where my passion is volunteering and giving back. And then when there was a calling for starting a college in San Carlos, my home reservation, I definitely wanted to be a part of that. I've always wanted to work and live in Indian country, specifically my reservation. But I know once I graduated from college with my bachelor's degree, I came back to San Carlos. I came looking for opportunities, but unfortunately there wasn't any available. And after 6 months of job searching, I found myself sleeping on my parents' couch, and I found myself working with the roads crew. So we were building roads, which is very hard work and very honest work. So I always commend people who do that, and I was part of them. It's in the summer in Arizona, and we're laying hot asphalt. So that was killing me. And like I said, after doing that for 6 months, my father came to me and he said, "John, I love you, but I didn't pay for your college education so you can sleep on my couch." So he lovingly kicked me out, is like what I tell people. And that's when the opportunity to work on building a tribal college in San Carlos came about, I was happy to come and build some of those opportunities, um, with my own tribe. And working, I would commute back and forth from the Phoenix area because I was working at Casino Arizona and Talking Stick Resort, and I would commute for some of the meetings that we had. We talked about using technology, using video conference and teleconference, but sometimes we just needed to meet in person to get things done and stay the long nights. And we had some of our meetings working and partnering with the Tohono O'odham Nation near Tucson and working with that community and their tribal college. So I'm very happy to see where it is now. And I was just talking with the president of the college. He told me that their first cohort is actually graduating in May. So I'm very proud of that fact, to be a part of working on the college. And I kept thinking, okay, what else can I do? What else can I do? And I know deep and down inside me, when I was 12 years old, I heard of something called the Peace Corps. I had no idea what it was, but I did some research, and that's what I wanted to be a part of. So that was always burning in the back of my mind, was joining Peace Corps. And every time I thought that, okay, this is the time that I'll do it, something else came up. Life happened, job opportunity happened, or family issues kept me from joining, from submitting my application. But after reevaluating, when I was done with the college, I figured, okay, if I don't do it now, I probably never will, just because I'm getting to that point in life where I need to start doing things now and checking them off my bucket list. And so I decided, why not? Let me put in for Peace Corps and see what I can do. It is a year-long application process where less than 9% of the applicants are received and accepted. So it was very competitive. And I worked with a lot of people to help build the proper application package, and I'm very thankful for that. And there are over 300 countries that you could use for Peace Corps service. Now, coming from Arizona and growing up here, I wanted someplace warm. That's what I'm used to, someplace warm where the climate is right. And I had all the right clothes. I had t-shirts, I had shorts. I could do that. But I first looked at Belize. That was my first location to look at. Nice tropical climate, but you needed a medical background, and I didn't have that. So I was like, okay, well, let me look elsewhere. I looked at Jamaica, and I wanted to work there. And I was like, oh, you need an agricultural background, and I didn't have that either. So I was like, okay, well, what about Samoa? I'm sure there's like a lot of good food there. It's a great beach location. And at the time, I think the laws have changed now, but it was illegal to be LGBT there. So I was like, okay, perfect, I've got to think of my safety as well. So, and I was talking with a few people who are in my circle and one of my mentors, and I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this 100%, because there's a box that you can check that says send me anywhere. And so I selected it. I put my faith in it, and I selected it, and I was accepted. And it said, guess what, John, you're going to Ukraine. It is not warm there. You will need to buy a parka for the very first time, because I did not own one. And there are snow winters there that I wasn't accustomed to. I was used to visiting snow, but not actually living in it. So that definitely changed a lot of things. And I had to buy a new wardrobe because I thought I was wearing t-shirts and shorts wherever I was going, but it did not happen. And once I arrived to Ukraine, I was selected to work there as an NGO advisor, working with a local NGO in Ukraine that is responsible for all the tech advancement and infrastructure development in the region where I lived. So I thought that was a perfect fit. That's what I was working on. That's where my background is technology. So I could help in that area. But when I got there, again, it was a reality check. Nobody looked like me. It's a predominantly white country. There was no one of color there. And my second day being there, and that's the picture, that's my host mom. My second day being there, my host mother took me to a local river where there was a beach, and we could go swimming or play in the water. And that was great. I was there with other volunteers and with her. But people started yelling things at me and throwing things at me. I couldn't understand it, but I knew it was because of the color of my skin, because no one else on that beach looked like me. And she immediately told me, grab your stuff, grab your stuff. I guess it was good. It was my second day because I didn't understand Ukrainian. I didn't understand Russian. I didn't know what they were saying. But I love her for it, and she would grab things and she threw it back at them. And so she even grabbed a handful of sand and threw it at them and rushed me out into a taxi. And Ukraine is a very, very poor country in some areas. The areas where they place volunteers, there's a lot of development that needs to happen. And so that's where I was. And I know she did not have money for a taxi, but she got us a taxi and she got us out of there. She removed us from the situation. It was that day. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm going home. I didn't lose anything. I still have opportunity back at the casino where I can go back and work there. But she convinced me to stay. I have a group of friends that convinced me to stay. And I'm so happy that I did, because being there, looking at this picture, the one next to it, I did a lot of training. We're talking about hacking. I'm teaching different youth organizations and even orphanages, teaching students how to be safe online, how to protect their data, how to protect themselves, because Ukraine, there's a city in Ukraine that has one of the highest human trafficking in all of Europe. So, and their targets are primarily orphanages, because there's an active war that's happening in Ukraine, and there's an increase in children who go to orphanages because of the war. Either their families are displaced or they lose their parent or guardian to the war. So I wanted to make sure that we arm the kids as much as possible. So that's what I did. And I was doing that I had a 2.5-year service commitment. But with only 6 months left, the pandemic of COVID-19 came and hit the world, and we were evacuated. And there's more pictures of me working with different organizations on how to use technology. One of them was doing computer awareness training for senior citizens, because they didn't know how to use computers or even touch screen phones. And then the bottom one is one of my favorite things. We did a dance camp, and I'm teaching them the Cupid Shuffle. So teaching the Cupid Shuffle to my friends and some of the kids there. And then the other one, I'm actually working at an HIV AIDS conference talking about the Peace Corps, because that's some of the work that I did in Ukraine as well, was work with PEPFAR, which stands for the President's Emergency Preparedness for AIDS Relief. And that was developed by George Bush. So it's a program that is run in different areas that have a high rate of HIV/AIDS. And again, unfortunately, Ukraine has the highest in all of Europe. And so we were working there talking about Peace Corps and some of the services that are available. So you jump from Ukrainian to Russian to English to try to keep all of that straight and whenever you're talking to someone. But I really enjoyed my time there. We had to evacuate, and it was less than 10 hours I had to get home, to pack whatever I could carry in 3 bags and make it to Kyiv. And so without the support of my friends, I wouldn't be able to do that. I ended up giving a lot of my stuff away because, like I said, I still had 6 months left. So I wasn't planning on leaving in that fashion and that quickly. And then the evacuation process was a week long. Sometimes we stayed at the airport. One night I slept at the airport, and then Peace Corps worked around the clock to put us in different hotels, to make sure that we were fed, make sure we had food. And after a week, we were on a plane leaving Ukraine. And then we went to Spain, and then we landed in Washington. And then from there, everyone flew back home to their home state. I stayed in Tempe at a facility where I could do self-quarantine for 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, I did not show any symptoms of the virus. So I was allowed to come back to San Carlos. And I've been in San Carlos for, I want to say this is my 2nd week here. And so it does take some time readjusting and leaving as quickly as I did, not being able to say goodbye to people that I wanted to, but just utilizing technology. And this is one of the things we did, American Days, where we're teaching American culture to people in Ukraine. And then on the left, you see all the various volunteers that all come from the United States. So, and that's where I am today. I feel that the work that I'm doing, and this is me again talking about diversity at the U.S. Embassy. At the bottom right, I'm working at an LGBT organization in Ukraine because it's legal there. However, it's still a very tough fight there. So I've worked with individuals on creating those support groups, and we had to meet underground and in secret locations. And there's things that we couldn't really do or advertise, but when they recently had their Equality March last year, I participated with Peace Corps. I had a 6x8 flag that I was carrying and wrapping all the volunteers in. And it was a great experience, but also it was a very scary experience because there was a lot of resistance. There was a lot of protesters. We had a huge police force manning the route, and the route wasn't even announced until the day of, and it shifted depending on what was happening at different places. There was at one point we heard explosions, and then Peace Corps called it and said, okay, we're done. Peace Corps volunteers have to leave. We can't be in this parade anymore. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done still for equality in Ukraine. And that's one of the things I was working on in the city that I worked in, and even some of the cities that I did not work in, is just developing those safe spaces. Because I was doing that here in the United States, I took that over there and worked with that there as well. So, and that's kind of where my passion is volunteering and working with people on an everyday level. I say that's where my passion is. Volunteering is what I like to do. Working in IT just pays the bills. So, I mean, if there are any questions, I know I went a little over, and we have an activity that I wanted to go through. This is my family. My father, mother, brothers, and sister. If you want to hit the next slide. Again, we talked about this, working with Ukraine. Again, we talked about this. We're going to do the next slide. And the next slide. And this is my work in Ukraine. This is some of the groups I'm involved with ACEs, working with a lot of the IT nerds that I connect with there. We proudly say we're IT nerds, and you can hit the next slide. Again, being in Pride, and the next slide. This is the activity. We'll go through this pretty quickly. So if you have a piece of paper handy and a pen, a marker, something to write with, we're going to make 9 circles. So if you hit the next slide, April or Lisa, it should look like this. We're going to do identity mapping, and this is something that I did when I would do presentations in Ukraine. This is something that I've done here because we want to talk about our identities and finding strength and pulling our strength from identities. So once you have this, put your name in the very middle circle. Or you can write me, yes, the very middle circle. And then think of 9 things that make up who you are. 9 things that if someone didn't know you, how would it be described to you? So while you're thinking of it, and while you're still going through this, if you want to go to the next slide, I can talk about mine. And you don't have to do anything like this. You can do it differently. So for me, what makes me up is I talked about being Apache. That's my culture. That's my heritage. And I'm very proud of that. And that's who I am. I am a son, brother, uncle. My family is very important to me, which is why I'm back here in San Carlos. And I even stayed connected with them a lot when I was away. And then Two-Spirit. We talked about some of the work that I do with the LGBT communities. I identify as a Two-Spirit individual. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, Two-Spirit is a broad umbrella term for someone who identifies as LGBT in the Native American community. And I'm proud to say that I am. One thing that I talked about with Peace Corps, when they were thinking of a place to send me within the country, they asked me certain questions. And I told them, this is who I am. This is how I identify. It's taken me so long to get here and to be confident in who I am. I will not go backwards. So they're like, well, thank you for telling us this. And that helped with the placement, and that helped me become a mentor to all the individuals out there who identified as LGBT. Cook. I love to cook. My friends know this. My family knows this. I love to cook. When I was in Ukraine, I was making fry bread. I was making tortillas every morning and burritos sometimes. And here, now that I'm back in the United States, I make Ukrainian food. And even before that, I was always cooking. It's my passion. It's my joy. I love doing that. Feeding people and bringing people around my table is one things I really enjoy. An activist. I like to say I'm an activist because I do want to bring up that social change. I talked about things that I faced as a child and what I learned about someone who identifies as LGBT. I want to change those stigmas. I want to make sure that people who come after us, the next generation, don't have to face those. Or if they do, it's not as strong as it was before. Teacher. I say teacher, I don't have any formal training as a teacher, but I do lead sessions. The knowledge that I have, I pass it along. One of my favorite authors is Maya Angelou. I love her. I've read everything that she's done. And one quote that she says that sticks with me is, when you learn, teach. So that's what I do. Things that I learn, I try to teach the next generation, or teach anyone who is willing to listen. Writer. I love keeping a journal. I've kept a journal since I was at least 13. I don't write in it every day, but I do write in it at least once a week. And serving in Ukraine, being there for a year and a half, I wrote like 10 volumes. There's always things that I needed to write in different days. That's my therapy on some days, is just writing. Again, it's nothing that I plan on sharing or publishing. It's just for me, but I love doing that. And then the last thing, I say last, but just because I don't have enough space, but IT nerd. I love it. I'm a tech geek. I can do project management. I can do coding. One of the things I did in Ukraine was I introduced computer coding for students. And I have a 10-year-old host sister, and her best friend, Ira. I asked her, I said, "Where is Ira?" And she said, "Oh, Ira's mom says computers are just for boys." I said, "Okay." So the very next week, we had a computer coding camp just for girls. And that filled up pretty quickly. So I'm an IT nerd. I love to share my knowledge. I love to learn more. You'll find me on the different blogs, reading different magazines, and even sometimes taking apart different machinery just so I can learn how it works. So that's my identity map. That makes me up of who I am. It's just a portion. It's not all of me. We can have this grow and grow. And if we were in a group setting, we could each share and see where we overlap. Because although we're all different, we all have our own identity, there are areas where we overlap and we're the same. We want the same things. We have the same qualities. So that's one of the benefits of doing this activity of identity mapping. And then when you have that, you can find your strength in it and help develop who you are and where you would need to grow as a person, or where you have strength and you can help others as a person. So I know I went over, I'm sorry, April, but that's what I have. And are there any questions that you guys have for me? If not, I'm available. Okay, yeah.
Kimba.
Yeah, I was just, that's a very powerful story. And I think, thank you for sharing. And, my brother too is two spirit, and we try to be very supportive of him and, showing him love. And, there's a lot of like what I see on my tribe, on the Navajo Nation. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
There's like a lot of issues with being gay on the Navajo Nation, where he struggles a lot with, you know, um, so many issues. And I was just wondering, for you, do you reach out to the youth in your community and talk to them about this? Because I think a lot of, our people struggle with those issues that they're facing, just with, I've seen my brother go through trying to just voice himself in our community, and then coming out, and then just people being plainly mean, and showing hatred. And I was just wondering if you provide those type of like sessions, just to show that, there's ways to handle certain situations too, or I don't know, just kind of like.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for asking. Yes, I do speak with different organizations or groups of people who are interested in hearing about being LGBT, and especially on a Native American reservation. Right now, I see that it's primarily the youth, that it's not an issue with some individuals. It's more people my age, my generation. But I see that it is changing in some areas, but there's still work that needs to happen. One thing that I did share with, that I do with my presentations is, as an activist, I worked and I definitely petitioned and advocated for marriage equality across the country. And it's great. Marriage equality exists in all 50 states. But what does that mean for us as Native people? I know on my reservation, marriage equality does not exist, because reservations are sovereign land and they can choose to accept that or not. And getting back to your brother and some of the issues that he faces, there are some support groups that I can definitely share with him, but also he can reach out to me as well. I know there are some presentations I did with Native PFLAG, but now that I'm back in the United States, I'm more than happy to speak with anyone.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that would be great. I think he needs some of those positive vibes and resources and someone he can talk to, you know, because I mean, even for me, like, I really like this identity map because I never really thought of writing that down for myself, you know, and that's
Yeah.
really cool because then it does kind of show, like, oh, wow, these are my interests and this is who I am. And I think this would go a long way for our youth too, you know, to start mapping that out for themselves. But no, I really enjoyed the talk. So that's all I wanted to say. But thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and another good thing with the identity map is if we were doing it in a group setting, let's say with the youth organization or a school, once it's done, it can be placed on the wall somewhere so that it's a constant reminder that these are the students who exist in this classroom.
Mhm.
Jonathan, we have a question from Anthony who asks, what do you enjoy most about IT?
What I enjoy most about IT is there are multiple ways to fix things. There's not just one way, there's not one true way to fix it. You can come about it from different aspects and have the solution either be a software solution or a hardware solution, or maybe even a process development. I like how open IT is in providing a solution for whatever, I'll say customer or whatever the user needs, we can find those solutions.
Tamara, were you going to ask a question? You'll need to unmute yourself first.
Okay, here I am. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, Tamara.
So I missed the beginning of this presentation, but do you have any immediate plans for since you've been back?
So my immediate plans, I don't have any. Even when I was planning to be done on my normal schedule later this year, I'd planned to travel for a couple months, but given the pandemic, that's not even an option now either. So my immediate plans are just to be home with my family. I was helping my niece with her spelling words earlier, so just doing that. And then I'm not in any rush to get back into the grind, but if an opportunity does present itself, I'd be happy to look at it, whether it's with working with a nonprofit or an NGO, or even getting out into the community, or how can we bring awareness to some of these issues on a virtual platform, being that we are shelter in place in most areas. But I don't have any definite plans. I'm just kind of taking it by ear. Oh, maybe catch up on some American television that I missed over the past 2 years.
We are all doing that, I think.
Yeah.
I have a question. I have a question for the group. Since part of the Eat, Learn, and Grow concepts were to help us connect. If you did the identity exercise just now, who would like to share something that when you mapped, it kind of surprised you? Like, oh, I really wasn't aware of that about myself. Well, I guess I'll start then. I was, for my identity map, the first circle I put was mom. And that was like, wow, life has changed for me because, you know, I didn't become a mom until much later in life. And almost all about half of my bubbles have changed because of my daughter and becoming a mom. My identity, those elements were there, but I think becoming a mom has shifted what, I guess, what I identify as. And so that I haven't done this, I guess, I haven't really thought about it since probably since I was in my 20s. And so I think about what my 20s map would have been like versus like what it is now as a mom and a more seasoned Native woman. Hey. How about anyone else here? Would you like to share about your identity maps?
I can share something.
Thank you.
So I noticed that when I was doing mine, they were more or less things that I've done before. But I thought that I should probably have some more spokes coming out of there about experiences, lived experiences that I've gone through, both as a child and as an adult, that, kind of form who I am instead of maybe occupations that I have or things like that. But so it's just got my wheels turning about all those things that make me who I am. So just wanted to share that. Thanks.
Oh, I like that. So instead of like labels, which I think we do, right? It's a human mind to put people in boxes really quick. And you're talking more about like a little, like digging deeper, right? Experience.
Right, exactly.
Cool, thanks, Anthony.
And another thing Dr. Newkirk shared, I like that you wrote IT nerd, so I can bond with you on that. But also one thing that you did bring up, which we can do if we have more time in future settings, is your one circle, you can continue to add spokes to that and then add spokes to the other circles. What makes all these different identities who you are? That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Hi, this is Melissa. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for this activity. I just wanted to share that I had just a little bit of problems identifying 3 others, so I was able to identify 6. So I've been sitting here trying to come up with 3 others that make me who I am. I have the normal, being Navajo, being a mom, being a runner, being a reader. I think it's always hard for me to to really think about who I am. So I will complete it though. So thank you so much for sharing this activity.
You're welcome.
April?
Yes, Marty.
Hey, some of the comments that's just been made me think that although core elements of my identity map have probably stayed the same over my 63 years now, or almost 63, but there are some things that have changed, and my identity map in my 20s would look very different in some respects than my 60s. And as an example, one of those things that I identify now but I never planned to or would want to is that I'm a widower. My wife had cancer and passed away at 59 years old, a little over 2.5 years ago. So 3 years ago, when I identified it as a widower. But that is a part of my life now that I've had to adjust to. And so our identity map, this was an excellent exercise, Jonathan, and I greatly appreciate your presentation and your story and the inspiration. But the identity map is such a useful tool. But I do think it is one that evolves over time with life experiences and things that come into our life that we wouldn't have expected, but that are, and that changes in some respects. So I just wanted to concur with some of the comments about it being a dynamic situation. It's not static. It does change over time.
Thanks, Mike. We have time for one last share. If anyone else burning desire to share. Just cute. I see my mom smiling at me. I love it.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me and see?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. The one that stands out most for me is the teacher. I've taught for almost 31 years on my reservation here. But now I'm teaching my granddaughter, but I'm also teaching people of different ages things they don't know of life and whatnot. So I'm a long life teacher, but I love it. My love is for the kids. I do a lot of volunteer here in Peach Springs. Before this happened, I'm still on First Things First, and it's to deal with kids 0 to 5, and it's mostly their health. Then I'm on Read On Hualapai, and that's with reading. For me, they both go hand in hand. And this past week, I was able to give books. We have 4 different sites where kids from 1 to 18, they can get meals from 10 to 12 o'clock, both a breakfast and a lunch. So I was able to deliver where they load their vans. And so it was good in my heart to give books, because right now we're under a 24-hour now, where we can go certain places, but we're pretty much locked down. And we have it's because of the C-19 getting more cases. I didn't think it was going to come, but it has reached our reservation. And so I'm glad that books were delivered from the lunch thing. And a lot of the grown-ups here, they know me. I've taught them, and I've taught their kids. So, you know, we're lucky. We're lucky that we're alive, but we got to watch what we do, and that we live in the United States. Because of April, I got to travel places. Like we went to, I'm half Chinese and half Hualapai. And I always want, one of my bucket lists, I've accomplished all 3. To go to China, to walk the Great Wall of China. And when we went over there, we do not know how lucky we are here in the United States. Going out to eat, like we went to Paris, France. You have to buy your food separately, each of the items. If you want to sit down at a table, you got to pay extra. You can stand up and eat. When you're in the foreign countries, going to the bathroom, for example, that's the bathroom. You got to pay. In Europe, where McDonald's, for example, going to the bathroom, there's someone in there that cleans it, but she sits there to make sure you're going to pay her. Either you can pay going in or out. And some other places, the bathrooms are metal, where you have to insert coins and it opens up. But most of them are clean. But also in Germany, when I first got in Germany, Frankfurt, Germany, the military with their machine guns. So we are so blessed. So count your blessings. And as an older person, an elder, I beat you. I'm 65, young man over there, Marty Edwards. I'm grateful each day to wake up, get up, and move. You know, think how many blessings you have, people. How lucky we are in the United States, even though at this time, you know, with the C-19. And I'll be quiet now because I can talk and talk as a politician. Okay,
Just kidding. Thank you, Mom. I appreciate you sharing with us. And as we're concluding here, the topic was vitality and identity, and I believe that that's an important topic for everyone, because if you don't know who you are, then you seek externally to find out, to find comfort, to find out where you belong. And so I think this is was a good topic. I've had many conversations with Jonathan about his life experience, and that always that's why I wanted him to speak on this topic, because he shared more about his journey in Ukraine. You know, he touched a little bit on it, you know, about getting things thrown at him on his second day. And he didn't, I hope this is okay, but he told me when he was marching in the Pride March, you know, because it was only legal a few years ago to be gay in Ukraine. He said, like, they were flanked by the US Marines from the embassy there, and they had to detour multiple times. And he just told me that basically in that country, that it was open season to hunt them. And that's, to me, really speaking about having that strength, that power in your identity, because he told me, he if I can also, well, I am going to share it. Okay, John. He had told me, I said, like, I'm scared for you being over there. Like, I don't want you to die, or I don't want you to get hurt. And he said, well, I always have the option to come back to the United States. And he said, the people of Ukraine who are LGBTQ, this is their home. And he's like, if I can be there and I can help them, I'm going to do it. And I'm at peace with whatever will come of that, but I will be there to help them. And, you know, in these times of change or renewal, we really, it's a time to really go deep and think about your identity and your strengths, wherever that needs to come from for you. And I'm hoping that this exercise and Jonathan's story, and more importantly, your stories, your identity, your strengths, that you'll really be able to tap into that now during these times. And I thank you for staying with us as we're 6 minutes over. We'll be having these series. This was going to be our last one, but since it looks like we're sheltering in much longer, we'll continue. There's a need, so we'll continue to be here and create this space. There's a survey coming, but if you have a burning desire to speak on a topic, you know how we just talked about identity, definitely send it to us. And we have this space, and if you get it to me over the weekend, we can probably have you as our next speaker next week. And if we don't hear from anyone before Saturday, we'll go ahead and move on with another topic. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for sharing a part of you and your story. And you don't know it, but you're going to be a trainer for Tinhorn, so you're good for now until you get your full-time gig.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening to what I have to offer. And like I said, if you'd like to reach out to me, please feel free to do so. Lisa and April have shared my Instagram and my email. Like I said, at this point, I'm just teaching my niece and nephew. So if there's anything you'd like me to help with, I'd be happy to.
Good deal. I guess for me, when you were talking about the how to keep children safe on the internet, that really touched a chord, because so many kids are online that never were because of this schooling situation. So,
right.
So that probably will be a topic to share with the parents. So thank you, everybody. Be blessed and go get some sunshine if you can before the day's over. Take care, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.
Later, Kina.
Bye. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Later.
Thanks. Bye.
Hey, Miss Kimba, Stephanie, Val, Deborah, Sheila, Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, and Mike. Hey. Asia. Hey. All right. I'm going to stop the recording.
To tell everybody.